The world is at a boiling point, from the unending Russia-Ukraine war to the multiple conflicts raging in West Asia to the increasing worries of a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan. Now the cross-border attacks between Iran and Pakistan have threatened to open a whole new front of war. They say that when a war breaks out, almost no one goes unaffected. Today, in the Gulf of Aden, the Indian Navy came to the rescue of a cargo vessel under attack. This is how things unfolded. At around midnight, INS Visakhapatnam, deployed in the region for anti-piracy operations, received a distress call from a ship. The SOS call came from a US-owned vessel called MV Genco Picardy. The vessel, with a crew of 22 on board, including 9 Indians, faced a drone attack late on Wednesday night. The ship was just 60 nautical miles south of Port Aden when it came under attack. The Indian Navy swiftly responded, rushing to rescue the vessel. The Indian Navy's bomb experts boarded the ship to inspect the damaged area. They did a thorough inspection and rendered the area safe for further transit. There has been a marked increase in threats to the safety of maritime traffic in a very important part. They have a direct bearing on India's economic interests. And so, as a result, India has deployed warships to the Arabian Sea to maintain a deterrent presence. Today's rescue operation by India comes amid growing concerns over the Houthis stepping up the attacks in the Red Sea. The Indian Navy chief has issued instructions to firmly deal with such maritime incidents. Last month, the Liberian-flagged vessel, which had 21 Indian crew members on board, was also the target of a drone attack off India's west coast. Another commercial oil tanker that was on the way to India came under a suspected drone strike. It happened in the southern Red Sea on the same day. This ship had a team of 25 Indian crew. MV Genco Picardy was transiting through the Gulf of Aden, carrying a cargo of phosphate rock. The shipping company said that there were no injuries to the crew on board, but the vessel itself suffered limited damage to its gangway. And hours later, the US military said its forces conducted strikes on 14 Houthi missiles that presented an imminent threat to merchant vessels and US Navy ships in the region. On Wednesday, the Houthis said that their missiles made a direct hit on the US Genco Picardy. The Yemen-based Houthi rebels have attacked ships crossing the Red Sea, leading to disruptions in commercial shipping trade routes. They do this in solidarity with the Palestinians, who have come under relentless attack from the Israeli forces. Earlier, they vowed to only attack Israeli ships, but recently they have threatened to expand their attacks to include American ships in response to American and British strikes on their positions. It came on the day Washington returned the Houthis to its list of terror groups. US officials said that the move was aimed at cutting off funding and weapons that Houthis have used to attack as well as hijack ships. Houthi attacks target a route that accounts for about 15% of the world's shipping traffic. It acts as a vital conduit between Europe and Asia. And in response to these attacks, shipping companies have rerouted their ships. The alternative shipping route around South Africa's Cape of Good Hope adds 10 to 14 days to the journey. That is a very costly undertaking. In Europe, big shipping lanes have instructed hundreds of its commercial vessels to stay clear of the Red Sea. While some ships have been ordered to take the long route around Africa, others have paused shipping altogether until safety is restored. And just add to this the weather-related closures and stoppages in Europe, and you get port congestions and delays. You see, the Red Sea maritime crisis is not limited to the Red Sea. It has a ripple effect throughout the business world. Banking executives are worried that the crisis will reignite inflationary pressures. Even war-hit Ukraine is affected. Kiev says that the Red Sea situation had led to a slowdown in its agricultural exports this month. Meanwhile, Italian ports are concerned that they are being bypassed as ships steer away from the Mediterranean route, and as a result, freight rates have more than doubled since early December. Marine insurance rates for war risks have also tripled. According to Reuters, war risk premiums had risen to around 1% of the value of a ship, and the rates, by the way, are expected to move higher. This means hundreds of thousands of dollars of additional costs for a 7-day voyage. Ship owners are wondering, what is cheaper? Paying additional insurance so that the ship can pass the Suez Canal, or take the longer route around Africa and rack up more fuel bills? And that is the cost of war. And as far as India is concerned, the crisis is unfolding in its vicinity. So New Delhi is alert, of course. It's monitoring the situation very closely. Apart from providing protective escorts to the ships, the Indian Navy has responded to the attacks and hijacking attempts in the Arabian Sea. The Indian Navy has also enhanced the deployment of 4 warships and surveillance aircraft in order to ensure maritime security. We now explore the Israel Defense Forces' alleged misapplication of the Hannibal Directive. In the ongoing Israel-Hamas war, it's a situation sparking serious debate over military operations and ethical standards. Let's just break this down for you. The Hannibal Directive was developed by the IDF's Northern Command, specifically by military officers Yossi Peled, Gabi Ashkenazi, and Yaakov Amidror, in 1986. Its aim essentially was to prevent the capture of Israeli soldiers by enemy forces. If a soldier was about to be captured, this directive allowed the military to use very strong actions to stop the capture, even if it meant the soldier might get hurt or killed. And the logic behind the directive was to deter the enemy forces from attempting to capture the IDF soldiers. After all, these soldiers would be less valuable as bargaining chips if they were at the risk of being killed or injured during a rescue attempt. Notably, the Hannibal Directive was formulated without consulting legal experts. It's a controversial method, often misunderstood and misapplied operational order. The directive has reportedly been used in Israel's conflict with Hamas. And one example is the incident that took place in Kibbutz Be'eri. Here, Hamas was holding hostages at the Cohen family home. The group released Yasmin Porat, one of the hostages, during this episode. The Israeli police anti-terror unit questioned her about the terrorists. She told them that there were about 40 of them and 14 civilian hostages. In what appeared to be an action in line with the Hannibal Directive, an Israeli tank reportedly fired 2 shells at the house. All the remaining hostages in the house were killed as per reports, all but one, Hadass Dagan. Hadass Dagan and Yasmin Porat were the only 2 survivors from the incident. Another distressing incident occurred along the Israel-Gaza border. IDF personnel received orders to prevent hostages being taken into Gaza by force if necessary, and reports suggest IDF helicopters targeted vehicles attempting to enter Gaza. There have been unconfirmed reports of civilian casualties. Asa Kasher, philosopher and author of the IDF's Code of Conduct, has demanded scrutiny of the Hannibal Directive, citing this very incident as an example. In fact, in a recent local media interview, he expressed deep concern over the Hannibal Directive's use, highlighting the lack of legal and ethical grounds for harming Israeli civilian citizens, regardless of their status as soldiers or civilians. Kasher raises questions about the Hannibal Directive's application. In the action that took place at the Cohen family home, he points out the directive's varied interpretations and its potential misapplication in operations, asserting that the directive in no form justifies harming Israeli civilians. Calls for an immediate investigation echo loudly. The families of the victims are demanding answers, supported by Kasher's urgent plea, criticizing the IDF's decision to postpone the investigation. Kasher has also asked whether a misconceived understanding of the Hannibal Directive was invoked in the Gaza incident. And that's not all. Asa Kasher calls for a radical change in the military culture. He emphasizes that dying for one's country is not a noble act. Quote unquote, it's bad to die for our country. That's what he declared. Every soldier needs to understand this critical message, according to him. Looking for opportunities to die, according to him, is contrary to military ethics. Soldiers may face situations requiring them to risk their lives. However, actively seeking danger goes against the core values and ethics, as per Kasher. Kasher's stance challenges the current military mindset, you see. He urges a shift from self-sacrifice to preserving life. Prioritizing life and human values, according to him, is paramount. And while the world is in the middle of two raging wars, while concerns are growing, so is their impact. From eggs to gems, the impact is visible in multiple ways all around us, across sectors. I know what you're wondering here. Why am I talking about eggs specifically? Because Russia, you see, is in a fix. How is that related to eggs, you ask? Well, egg prices in the country are rising, to the extent that the Russian President Vladimir Putin had to personally apologize for the crisis. You heard that right. You see, it all boils down to the impact of the war. Let's just break this down for you. The price of eggs has been a growing concern there. In fact, the price increased over 40% last year. How is Moscow dealing with this? The government will be exempting over 1 billion eggs, 1.2 billion to be precise, from import duty in the first half of this year. In fact, Russia has asked its neighbor, Kazakhstan, for help. It wants the country to supply more eggs to the retailers. And this, by the way, is just one part of the story as far as the impact is concerned. The wars are also affecting the precious gems industry in India. How exactly? You see, the thing is, both Russia as well as Israel are crucial sources as far as India's diamond imports are concerned. And which is why the wars are making their impact felt on this industry. And you know why this is extremely significant? Because India is a major player as far as the diamond industry is concerned. In case you were not aware, a huge chunk of the world's rough diamonds are cut and polished in India. How major? 90%. You heard that right. The country's overall gross exports of cut and polished diamonds, in fact, fell 9.78% in dollar terms during the April 2022 to March 2023 period. This is as per India's Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council. There has also been a decline in the demand from the developed nations. And the global economic slowdown has not helped. This report cites remarks from the managing director of a Gujarat-based company focused on jewelry exports and diamond trading, who talks about the downturn in the work, with exports decreasing about 30 to 35% over the past 7 months. While there have been challenges, there is also reason for optimism. The report also quotes the chairman of the Gem and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, who says that the industry made a strong comeback in November 2023 with an impressive 11.44% growth in overall gem and jewelry exports. But the overall exports for April to November were 19% lower than the same period of 2022, as per the report. These indicators are strong reminders of the impact that the wars are having on us and how our world is changing as a result of the rising tensions and conflicts.